9:30. That's the number. Not 7:30. Not 8. Not sometime around sunset when the light was still on the water. 9:30 at night. When the stars were out and the harbor had gone quiet and the only sound was the water moving against the hull of boats that had been anchored there for the season. A woman was on land. She was close enough to the Soulmate to hear what came from it. And what she heard at 9:30 was so significant, so loud, so out of place in that quiet, that she remembered it, that she talked about it, that she eventually told someone who told Jim Todd, and Jim Todd told Ashleigh Banfield, and Ashleigh Banfield said it publicly for the first time this week on Drop Dead Serious. A loud noise from the direction of the Soulmate at 9:30 at night. Now. Brian Hooker told investigators that Lynette fell from the dinghy at around 7:30 in the evening on April 4th. That's his account. That's what he told the Royal Bahamas Police Force. That's what he told Darlene Hamlett, Lynette's 76-year-old mother. That's the timeline he has maintained. 7:30. The dinghy. Not the Soulmate. If something significant happened on or near the Soulmate at 9:30 in the evening, 2 full hours after Brian says Lynette fell from the dinghy, and in a completely different location, then one of two things is true. Either Brian is wrong about the time, or Brian is wrong about the place, or Brian is wrong about both. I'm not drawing a conclusion. I'm presenting what a witness said and what it means when you put it next to the account that has been the center of this investigation since the morning of April 5th. This is Global Crime Files. Lynette Hooker was 55 years old. She was from Onstead, Michigan. She gave up everything: the house, the career, the possessions she had spent her adult life accumulating, to live on the water with Brian. 4 years on the Soulmate. Sea turtles, sunsets, cinnamon rolls from a solar oven. She documented it with the kind of generosity that comes from someone who genuinely believes the life they're living is beautiful and worth sharing. Her last Instagram caption said not going anywhere for a while. She has been missing since April 4th, 2026. And this week, something new entered the public record. Subscribe to Global Crime Files and turn on your notifications before we go any further. Everything I tell you today comes from verified, sourced reporting. The witness account I just described came from Ashleigh Banfield's Drop Dead Serious podcast, sourced through Jim Todd, a volunteer with Hopetown Volunteer Fire and Rescue, who was one of the first people on the scene the morning of April 5th. Jim Todd spoke directly with the witness. He reported what she said. Every source in this episode is named and attributed. Let me start with Jim Todd, because before we get to the witness and what she heard, I need you to understand who Jim Todd is and why his words carry weight in this case. Jim Todd is a volunteer with Hopetown Volunteer Fire and Rescue. He is not a federal investigator. He is not a television commentator. He is a man who lives and works in the Abaco Islands, who knows that coastline the way you know your own neighborhood, and who was on the water in the hours after Lynette disappeared. He was one of the first people to physically reach Brian Hooker at Marsh Harbor in the early morning hours of April 5th. He pulled Brian up onto the rescue vessel. He sat with him. He listened to Brian's account of what happened. He watched Brian's face. He asked questions. And then he took Brian back to the Soulmate. Jim Todd was there. And this week, speaking with Ashleigh Banfield, Jim Todd said things about Brian's account that I have not heard any other named, credible, on-the-ground source say as clearly or as specifically. He said Brian's story about what he did after reaching shore is, and this is his word, inconceivable. Let me explain what that means specifically. Because the word matters, Brian told people, including Darlene Hamlett, Lynette's mother, that after reaching shore in Marsh Harbor, In the early morning hours of April 5th, he knocked on 2 doors that didn't answer. He then flagged down a passing vehicle, whose driver looked at him and kept going. He eventually made his way to the boatyard. Jim Todd knows that coastline. He knows exactly where the dinghy was found. He described what is to the west of that location: thick scrub bush, impenetrable, completely dark, with nothing of significance for hundreds of yards. And he described what is to the north, about 150 yards away. The boatyard? Extremely brightly lit, visible from the water. A landmark at night that anyone approaching Marsh Harbor by water would have been watching for the entire time they were drifting across the Sea of Abaco. 150 yards, brightly lit, a beacon. The alternative is to walk west into pitch-black jungle through impenetrable scrub brush, or to go south through more difficult terrain across a water inlet in the dark, through more bush, to reach a small residential subdivision of about 30 homes. Jim Todd's assessment was direct. If you are 150 yards from the brightest landmark in your visible world, you do not choose to walk into the dark. Nobody does. The probability of someone making that choice, of a person who has just spent hours on the water in distress, who knows that bright lights mean help, choosing instead to walk in the opposite direction, approaches 0. His word approaches 0. And then the doors. If Brian somehow made it to that subdivision, which Jim Todd says is essentially inaccessible from where the dinghy was found on foot in the dark, that subdivision has approximately 30 homes. 30, occupied by Bahamian families who live there year-round, who work there, who sleep there. Jim Todd confirmed they are not vacation properties. They are homes with people in them. And Brian knocked on 2 doors, got no answer at either one, and then left. Jim Todd asked the obvious question. If you made it to a residential street through what would have been an extraordinary journey through dark terrain, and you knocked on the first door and got no answer, you walk to the next house, and the one after that, and the one after that. You do not knock on 2 doors and go back. Nobody does that. And then the car. Brian told people he flagged down a passing vehicle at around 4 in the morning on a Sunday in a remote area of Marsh Harbor, and the driver looked at him and kept going. Jim Todd's assessment of that: extremely far-fetched. The probability of a vehicle being on those streets at 4 a.m. on a Sunday approaches 0. And even if a vehicle was there, the Abaco community is small, it is tight, and if someone in distress waved down your car, you would stop. You would call someone. You would help. You would not drive away. There is something else. Brian was wearing slides when Jim Todd retrieved him. Not boots, not shoes, slides, flip-flops. And Brian's account involves walking through thick bush in the dark, through rough terrain, over rocks that he described to Darlene as sharp on his feet. Jim Todd's response to that was quiet and specific. With slides, you would stay on the rocks along the shore toward the boatyard. You would not go into the bush. You could not go into the bush. Not in slides. Not in the dark. The story Brian told about what he did between reaching shore and arriving at the boatyard doesn't work. Not geographically. Not logistically. Not physically. Not at 4 in the morning on a Sunday with the boatyard 150 yards north and bright as a landing strip. That is Jim Todd's assessment, named, on the record, from someone who was there. Now, the witness. Jim Todd told Ashleigh Banfield that there was a woman on land, on shore near the area of the Soulmate's anchorage, who reported hearing a significant noise from the direction of the Soulmate that night. A loud noise, distinctive, not something you brush off, not from the dinghy, from the direction of the Soulmate. And the timing of that noise, based on what this witness described, based on when things had gone quiet on the island, when the general evening activity of island life had settled, was around 9:30 at night, after 9:30, when things were quiet enough to hear it clearly. Jim Todd was specific about this. He said the witness confirmed that prior to the noise there had been general island commotion, the normal sounds of an evening in the Abacos, and that the noise she heard was after that commotion had settled, after things were quiet, after 9:30. Sit with that for a second. Brian says Lynette fell from the dinghy at approximately 7:30 in the evening. A witness reports hearing a significant noise from the direction of the Soulmate at approximately 9:30 at night, 2 hours, and in a completely different location. The dinghy was in the channel. The Soulmate was anchored at Aunt Pat's Bay. They are not the same place. If something significant happened at or near the Soulmate at 9:30, if that's what this witness heard, then whatever she heard did not happen, where Brian says Lynette went into the water, and it did not happen when Brian says it happened. I want to be careful here, because careful is the right thing to be. The witness heard a noise, a significant noise, from the direction of the Soulmate at approximately 9:30 at night. Jim Todd is reporting this secondhand. He spoke with the witness but emphasized that parts of this account came to him through another person first. He was careful about that. He said what he knew with confidence, and he said what he was less certain about honestly. What he is certain about. A woman on land in that area heard something significant from the direction of the Soulmate that night. That witness has spoken with investigators. She is not speaking publicly. Her account is part of the investigation. What he is less certain about, the exact timing. He said his sense of the conversation suggested 9:30, but he could not confirm that with precision. What another report has said. A separate account places the noise slightly later, possibly even past 9:30, again after things on the island had gone quiet. What is confirmed and is not in dispute? Investigators know about this witness. They have spoken with her. The account is part of the active investigation. Jim Todd confirmed that directly. There is also the flare. I want to spend time on this because there is new detail from Jim Todd that changes how I've been thinking about the flare since we covered it in an earlier episode. Witnesses previously reported seeing a flare from the direction of the Soulmate at approximately 8 p.m. Multiple people. We covered that episode. Brian reportedly told Darlene he fired 2 flares. There is also information suggesting only 1 flare was fired. Jim Todd said he has heard that, but could not confirm it with certainty. But the new detail, the one I had not heard before this week, is about the direction of the flare. It did not go up. It went sideways, horizontally, along the surface of the water, not up into the sky as a standard maritime distress signal is designed to do. Think about what that means for a moment. A distress flare is designed to go straight up, high in the air, visible for miles, visible to every boat, every house, every person looking at the horizon in any direction. The purpose of a distress flare is maximum visibility. You fire it up because you need to be seen. But if a flare goes horizontal, if it travels along the surface of the water, it is visible only in one direction, only to someone who is looking directly at the angle of its path. It is not a signal to the world. It is a narrow beam of light that travels along the surface and is only seen by the few people who happen to be positioned exactly right. And that is exactly what happened. A small number of witnesses on land reported seeing a flare. Not all the houses facing the Sea of Abaco. Not all the boats at anchor. a small number of witnesses in a specific location. Because the flare went sideways. Jim Todd reported this account as secondhand. He heard it from someone who had spoken to the witness who saw the flare, not directly from the witness herself. He was clear about that distinction. But the implication of a horizontal flare versus a vertical distress signal is something I cannot stop thinking about. If you are in distress, if you are desperately trying to signal for help because your wife has just gone overboard, you fire the flare straight up. You have one shot. You use it correctly. You make it visible to as many people as possible. A horizontal flare is not that. I'm not telling you what it is. I don't know what it is. What I know is what Jim Todd said. And what Jim Todd said is that based on the witness account, as it was conveyed to him, the flare went horizontally along the water, not up. That's in the public record now. Now I want to spend a few minutes on something Jim Todd said that didn't get as much attention as the witness account or the flare direction, but I think it should. He confirmed specific details about the morning of April 5th that I had not heard from a named on-the-ground source before. He confirmed that he and the rescue team picked up Brian from shore and arrived at the Soulmate at approximately 7:45 in the morning. He confirmed that Brian, in less than 1 minute, gained access to the Soulmate through the aft hatch area. The same location where witnesses had previously noted Brian went to before going below deck. He confirmed that Brian and a police officer went below deck at approximately 7:45 a.m. And he confirmed that based on his best estimate, Brian and the officer were below deck until approximately 8:45 a.m. 1 hour below deck with a police officer now. The AIS, the vessel tracking system that has been the center of so much discussion in this case, went offline at 9:29 p.m. the night before. That is confirmed. It came back online at 8:34 a.m. the following morning. Jim Todd confirmed that timeline when Ashleigh shared it with him. His response, "That's a shocking bit of information." 8:34 a.m. Brian had been below deck since 7:45. He was still below deck at 8:34. He came back above deck at approximately 8:45. The AIS came back online at 8:34, while Brian was below deck in the navigation station with a police officer present. I'm not saying he turned it back on. I'm noting what is confirmed and what the timing shows, because that's what the evidence in this case actually requires. Noting what is confirmed and letting you think about it. Darlene Hamlett is 76 years old. She lives in Florida. She's been waiting for information about her daughter since April 5th. This week, something emerged from a conversation between Jim Todd and Ashleigh Banfield that I want to handle with care because it is the most personal and the most painful piece of new information in this episode. Jim Todd shared something that Darlene had said to Ashleigh, not to the media, to Ashleigh, privately. Darlene told Ashleigh that the last time Lynette was with her, the last time they were together, Darlene told Lynette not to go back. Those were her words. She told her not to go back because she believed, and said directly to her daughter, that he was going to kill her. I'm going to leave that there, because there is nothing I can add to it that would make it land harder than it already does. Darlene knew. She said it. Lynette went back anyway, and this is where we are on day 43 of Lynette's disappearance. People ask how this happens, how a woman who is loved, who has a mother who told her plainly what she feared, who has a daughter who has been speaking publicly about her concerns from the beginning, how does that woman go back to a situation that everyone around her was terrified of? It happens because the psychology of these relationships is extraordinarily complex, because leaving is rarely as simple as deciding to leave, because there are financial ties and emotional ties and years of history, and the belief, sometimes warranted, sometimes not, but always sincere, that things will be different, that this time is the last time, that it will get better. Lynette had a ticket out. March 11, 2026. She had a plane ticket to leave Brian. She had booked it. She had planned it. She didn't use it. And 24 days later, she disappeared. Darlene knew, said it out loud, told her own daughter. I told her not to go back. The investigation continues. The Soulmate is at Fort Pierce Coast Guard Station in federal custody. Forensic processing is active. Ashleigh Banfield confirmed from a strong source that investigators found a forensic gold mine on that vessel. Evidence bags were seen coming off the boat. Crime scene tape went up on May 13th. The witness who heard the significant noise from the direction of the Soulmate at approximately 9:30 the night of April 4th has spoken to investigators. Her account is part of the active investigation. Jim Todd confirmed that Brian's account of what he did after reaching shore, the two doors, the car, the dark bush, the rocky shore and slides, is inconceivable. Every part of it. Brian Hooker has not been charged with any crime. His attorneys state he categorically and unequivocally denies any wrongdoing. All individuals referenced are presumed innocent unless formally charged and convicted in a court of law. If you have any information about the disappearance of Lynette Hooker, contact the U.S. Coast Guard Investigative Service through the CGIS Tips app on any phone, completely anonymous. The Royal Bahamas Police Force investigation also remains active. Lynette Hooker was 55 years old. She was from Onstead, Michigan. She called the ocean her happy place. She filmed sea turtles and photographed sunsets and documented 4 years of a life on the water that looked from the outside like a dream. Her mother told her not to go back. She went back anyway. And the Soulmate is in Fort Pierce, Florida, in federal custody, behind crime scene tape. And a woman on land heard something from the direction of that boat at 9:30 at night, 2 hours after Brian says it was over. Sources: Ashleigh Banfield, Drop Dead Serious Podcast, May 16th, 2026. Jim Todd, Hopetown Volunteer Fire and Rescue, speaking publicly to Ashleigh Banfield on the record. Witness account, reported by Jim Todd as secondhand from a witness who has spoken to investigators. AIS timeline, confirmed public record, 9:29 p.m. offline, 8:34 a.m. online. Darlene Hamlett's statement, shared through Jim Todd's account of his conversation with Ashleigh Banfield. March 11th plane ticket, previously confirmed by Carly Aylesworth publicly. This is Global Crime Files. Every victim deserves the truth. Every story deserves to be told.